go.
So good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm Leah Orman and I'm a visiting teacher for Education Angels. I'm based in Queenstown in the South Island of New Zealand. So every month I go and visit the lovely home-based educators and the nannies who are caring for children in their own homes. Previous to this job, I worked as an early childhood teacher, and before that, I was a primary teacher. So today we're going to be learning a little bit about how to teach children through play. So first of all, I just wanted you to just have a little think about how children learn, and there's no right or wrong answer here. If you want to put through the TV, that's absolutely fine, and you can write in the chat box, or you can turn your microphone on and share your ideas, but I'll just give you a couple of minutes just to have a little think about the different ways that children learn. And as I said, there's no right or wrong answer. Does anybody want to share anything now? I'll have a look at the chat box. Okay, so Vicky says through exploring. Guha says through experimenting. Murphy says exploration and communication. Yeah, these are all really good answers. Yeah, exploring and experimenting is a very important one. Yeah. Herjit says through social interaction, and that's definitely true too, because you learn so much from your friends. Yeah. So Sam has put through observing and imitation. Yeah. You have to be very careful with those little ones because they are always copying us. So amazing. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Let me go on to the next screen. Yep. So how do children learn? So I don't know if any of you have heard of a document called Te Whariki. It is the early childhood curriculum. And in this early childhood curriculum, it says that children are positioned as confident and competent learners from birth. They learn by engaging in meaningful interactions with people, places, and things, and it is a process that continues throughout their lifetime. So you'll see there that there's some pictures of children. So whoever said social interaction, perfect. There's a picture of a library because children learn through going to different places. There's some pictures of toys because they need to interact with resources. And there's a picture of a playground because, as it says, they need to interact through going to different places. So children are learning in many different ways. But the main way that children learn is through play. So there's a couple of really cool quotes here that I really like. And the first one says, "Tell me and I'll forget, teach me and I'll remember, involve me and I'll learn." So that's just a reminder there that children do need to have hands-on experiences, and learning through play is so, so important. The next quote says, "Scientists have recently determined that it takes 400 repetitions to create a new synapse in a brain. But if it is done through play, it only takes between 10 to 20 repetitions." So again, it's just reminding us that play is very, very important. And the other quote there says, "Play is the highest form of research." And that's good old Albert Einstein. So as I mentioned to a few of you before, about schemas of play, this slide is a little bit about that. So children, when they are playing, they have these things called schemas or urges. And there's a list there of the different schemas of play. You've got transporting, trajectory, enveloping, enclosing, positioning, connecting, disconnecting, and rotation. So children often repeat actions over and over, and what they're doing is they're testing things out. They're trying to figure out the world and how things work. And they repeat these ideas. So as we talked about earlier, a child who is maybe into the trajectory schema of play, you might often notice them throwing their toys around the room. And as frustrating as that can be, it is actually their stage of development or their stage of interest. And so taking note of that is actually very important, and trying to figure out what it is that they're learning is really important. So if they're throwing their toys around the room, then you need to be giving them opportunities to be throwing things that are safe. Because what they are doing is they're trying to find a pattern, and they're building cognitive structures in their brain. You can find out a lot more about schemas of play just through Google searching. And there are so many different ideas of different things that you can do. Pinterest is amazing too. Okay, so this is kind of more aimed for teachers, this part, but there's no reason why parents can't be doing the same sort of thing. So this is a little bit about what we call the planning cycle. So you'll see up in the top left corner, the child is in the middle, because planning for their play is really, really important. So first of all, what you would need to do is observe them, then reflect on what they're learning. Then you need to plan for their learning. You need to implement some activities for them, and then you need to evaluate. So as parents, as teachers, as caregivers, our job is to support children with their learning through play and through interactions with people, places, and things. And I'm going to go into a bit more detail now on those. Just checking everybody can still hear me, because I am a bit nervous about my computer.
Yes, we can.
Great. Anybody has any questions, feel free to just put it in the chat box. Moving on. Okay, observing. So this is the very first part to the planning cycle. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that you set up the environment, whether that's your lounge, the garden, their bedroom, wherever you are, whatever space you've got for them. You need to make sure that you have a selection of toys. And the basic equipments are things like train sets, anything they can move, cars, puzzles, blocks, because blocks are very open-ended, Lego, Mobilo, Duplo, all of those things. Other moving objects such as balls, a range of instruments, and they can be homemade instruments. They don't have to be lovely shop-bought expensive wooden instruments. It can literally be a bottle with some rice in that they shake as a shaker. Books, maybe some dress-up equipment, some cooking toys, and again, you can just use pots and pans from your cupboards. Water is a really important material for children to have access to if it's not too cold where you are. And then some basic stationery. So whether that's just some scrap paper, a couple of pencils, or some watercolor paints, but having a variety of resources available means that the child then has choice about what they do. And children are very smart and they are able to lead their own learning. So it's really important to have those basic things out available for them as much as you can. And then while they're engaging in their play, it's really important for us to sit back and watch how they're using the resources that you've put out for them, and focus on what they're doing or the skill, not the toy that they have chosen specifically, because it's quite easy for you to see a child pick up a dinosaur and go, oh, he's really into dinosaurs, but that might not be the case. It might be that they're really interested in pretend play, moving figurines around, using their imagination. So it is really important to just watch for a while and just see what it is they're actually doing with the toys that they're choosing. And you can get down on their level and talk to them and find out what they know already and comment on what they're doing. And then if you're a teacher, talking to the child's parents to find out what they like to play with at home is really important as well. And if you're a parent, maybe talking to their teachers at preschool about what you've noticed them playing with at the preschool, because if the teacher says, oh, she's really into puzzles at the moment, then maybe you could nip to the op shop and grab some puzzles and just extend on that learning. So it's really important to have that open communication with everybody who's looking after them. Anybody got any questions on observation, observing? And this is the really important stage, because this allows the child to be free, to play freely, to have time to be spontaneous, and children need a lot of that time. As I said, they are leaders of their own learning.
I do have a question about the first point, setting up the environment with a selection of toys. I've read somewhere that you need 10 toys, like you need to, you need to present at least 10 toys a day and then rotate it every single week or something.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't put a set number on that. But I would just say making sure that there is a variety, so that you're not just giving girls dolls and boys train sets, but everybody has a range of resources to explore. Whether it's a couple of pots and pans, a few puzzles, and you may not want to put 10 things out all in one go, because it could be a bit overwhelming for them and they might not know what to do with too many toys, and that's when they kind of make a bit of a big mess. So you may want to just put out a few toys at a time and and just see how they go with those and then add more. But I definitely think that it's right about rotating them, Sam, because children definitely get bored after a while once they've done everything that they can with those toys. So some people have like a little storage cupboard and they put things away each week and bring new things out. So
Thank you. We have another question from Harjit. She said, which methods should be used for observation?
For observation, mainly in early childhood, we just sit back and watch, observe, comment, talk to them, make some notes. You may want to take some photos, especially if you're a teacher and you're teaching lots of children. You might not be able to remember what everybody's been into. So taking notes will really help, and taking photos. I like to take photos because when I look back at photos, I remember instantly what they were doing and what we talked about. So it's really up to you and your style of learning, I guess, and teaching. Here's an example of an observation. So the house is set up with a range of toys. This is kind of aimed at home-based childcare or an early childhood centre. The child walks through the door. Her name's Penny. She's 3. You say hi to her when she arrives, and you watch as she approaches the range of toys. First, she finds a ball and she pushes it with her hand, and then she kicks it softly. Then she picks up a car and races it around the room. She then finds a trolley and puts a baby inside and pushes it around the room, and then rams the trolley into one of the other children. The other child cries, and you hug them while Penny runs away to hide. Throughout the day, she goes on the trampoline, she does a puzzle. She spends a long period of time moving the trains around, and she gets frustrated when the train track comes apart and cries and throws the trains and the tracks. You console her and help her to fix it. When her mum comes to pick her up, you ask what she's been doing at home, and mum says that she loves her new skateboard. So just have a little think for a moment. This is the reflecting stage. So you've done some observations, maybe you've taken some photos, made some notes, had a talk to one of the other teachers, and now you're thinking about what common interest is happening. So just going back to earlier where I talked about what they were doing, what skill they're learning, as opposed to liking the ball, because we can kind of, we're not really expanding enough if we just think about the one thing that they're playing with. Try to think about the actions that they're doing with the different toys. So what was she doing most of the time? What did her family say about her interests at home? How do I know enough, or do I need to observe more? So does anybody want to comment on what interest you think was happening here? Vicky says pushing different toys. Yeah, brilliant. Definitely lots of pushing happening, wasn't there, with the ball, the trolley, the trains, the cars. Yeah. Can anyone remember what the family said she was into?
Skateboard.
Yep, her skateboard. And then, do I know enough, or do I need to observe a bit more? And that's completely up to you. Depends on what notes you've made, what you've observed, and whether you were able to decide on a particular interest. But I would say from that one day, you've learned a lot about Penny. You may not get that amount of time to spend with just one child unless it's your own. But in an early childhood centre or home-based care, it can be very busy. So what common interest is happening here? Moving objects. What's she doing? She's exploring toys that she can push or move. What did the family say? That she loves her skateboard. And do I know enough? You could observe for a few more days, and maybe set up some more moving toys to see if that is really her interest. So here is an overview of Te Whariki, which, as I mentioned earlier, is the early childhood curriculum. So at the top in blue, you've got the principles, and in pinky red, you've got the strands and the goals. So just have a brief skim with your eyes, and have a quick think about where Penny's learning is falling into. So it could be the well-being strand, connecting links to the family, the belonging, contribution, communication, exploration. You may think it falls into all of them, and that's possible. because our curriculum is designed like a mat, it's woven like a mat, and children are not always just learning one thing and in one area of the curriculum. So anybody got any ideas what they think? Let's have a look.
Harjit says exploration with toys.
Yeah, I agree as well. I would say exploring. So maybe learning strategies for active exploration and developing working theories. Feel free to take a photo of this page. There is also a link coming up where you can actually see the curriculum yourself. So we've identified that Penny is into moving different objects. And then looking at the curriculum as we just did, as Sam mentioned, her interests mainly fall into the exploration strand. Understanding and trying things out, exploring, playing with ideas, using her physical abilities and becoming curious. And as a teacher or as a parent, is there something else you would like to support Penny with? As I said, our curriculum is like a woven mat. So although she's really into things that move, what else do you feel she needs to learn more about?
Oh, we have a comment from Vicky. She said belonging.
Yeah. Should we go back to belonging? So making links with the family and wider world, knowing they have a place, becoming comfortable with routines. And I think knowing limits of acceptable behavior is definitely something she needs some more support with, because as the observation stated, she rammed the trolley into somebody and she threw some toys around the room. So she definitely needs some support with limits of acceptable behavior. Brilliant. So here we go. Other links to the curriculum. Penny also needs some support with managing herself when she's frustrated. So that falls into the well-being strand. She also needs to learn some social skills. Maybe she's unaware of how to interact with others. That could come under the contribution strand, but as Vicky said, it can also come under the belonging strand. And there's no right or wrong answer. Yeah. But planning for these things is just as important as planning for her interest in objects that move, if not more important. Social skills are really, really key when it comes to early childhood development. You may wish to just focus on the social skills first and then work on her interest in objects that move, but it's up to you. Here are some planning ideas though. So moving on to her interest in things that move. So you've done the observation, you've had a think, you've reflected on how it links to the curriculum. And now we need to start to plan for her learning. So here's just some activities that I come up with. Setting up ramps, using lots of vocabulary, because as someone mentioned earlier on, communication is really important. And so giving them the words such as fast, slow, high, low is key. So making some suggestions about how to move the ramps, setting up different materials with ramps and cars and trucks. And then some other ideas to support her interest in things that move is going to the park to explore slides, setting up ball games, making toy cars with recycled materials, exploring how things move in water. And you can purchase various toys from op shops or wherever is not too expensive for you. And then going back to her social development, you can add that in. So you can see how I've underlined asking her friend to come and join in the activities that you're setting up. So it's not just her doing the activities, but you're inviting somebody to come in and then encouraging her to take turns. And when something's not going her way, just giving her those skills, such as taking a breath, counting to 3, being calm yourself, and reassuring her that everything is okay. And children are learning all of the time, so it's our job to help them. This is a planning sheet that we use at Education Angels. So I don't know if anybody is watching that is currently a home-based educator or a nanny. But if you are, here is an example of how to use those planning sheets. So as you can see, I've put Penny's name at the top. I've put that she loves skateboards, trains and balls. She's learning about objects that move, but she's also learning to play alongside her friends and be gentle. She's learning to talk to her friends about what she needs. Then I've got the links to the curriculum and the activity ideas that I've already mentioned. So once you've done your planning, this is where you then start to set up the environment according to their needs and their stage of development, their interest. And then you need to get some resources and you need to carry out the activities either with the child or by just allowing them to interact on their own. And at this stage, as a teacher especially, it is important to take photos because that's where it feeds into assessment learning stories. And I've just put there, be mindful that they may not always wish to play with the activity that you've set up. And that's happened to me thousands of times. And it can be a bit frustrating because you think, oh, I really thought that was what she was into or he was into, and you spent a lot of time gathering the resources and setting it up and making it fun, and they actually just want to go in the corner and read a book. And that's okay, because maybe they've had a rough night or there's something going on at home, or they just don't want to play with that day, and that's okay. And you can just make a note of that and maybe try again the next day or even later on in the day. And the last point is evaluation. So once you have implemented your ideas for them, and you've worked with them on that interest, and you've questioned them and talked to them and given them lots of words and vocabulary, you've helped them with their social skills, and this can go on over time. They can have one interest that they're working on for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. But once you're kind of feeling like you want to wrap it up, have a look back at your plans, have a look back at the ideas that you've set up for them, and just have a think about what they've learned, how you can support them next. And then on the planning sheet, if you're working as a early childhood teacher or home educator, fill in the last box of the planning sheet. And their interests may still be the same. And if that's the case, then plan some more activities around that interest. So if you've noticed at home that your child has been really into pretend play, and you've been setting up tea parties and dress ups and ice cream shops and all of those things, but you notice that they're still loving it, then set up more stuff. Get their soft teddies out and pretend to be vets for the day, and just go crazy. But if their interest has changed and you've noticed maybe they've gone more down the route of learning to write, for example, and they're really into pens and paper and painting and symbols and letters, then that's when you move on and you start the cycle all over again. So you set up more of those things, you watch them, you make notes, you set up more of those things, and you engage with them, and then you evaluate again. And it's just a continuous cycle. And there's no time frame on that cycle. Children's interests, especially when they're younger, change very, very quickly. Maybe when they're older, they will spend more time mastering certain skills and stages of their development. So it can get really fun, especially with like 3 and 4 year olds, if they're into life cycles and bugs and things like that. You can really get some fun work done with them. So where to look for activity ideas? And this is something I get asked all the time, because I know it can get really hard thinking, what am I going to do today? Pinterest is my best friend. I am on there all of the time, and I just type in the skill or the interest into the search bar, and so many cool ideas come up. Even with just things you've got in your garden, natural resources, you don't need to spend lots of money and time on things. Google, going on to the early childhood play ideas site, and on that page, it's really good. They've got Play-Doh recipes and messy play recipes and junk modeling ideas. So there's lots on there. Going to the library is a really good one. When I was doing home-based education myself, we used to go to the library, and I had a little boy that was really into science, and I used to get science books, and we used to do different science activities every day, and that was just so fun. He loved it. Asking your visit teacher, which in my home educators cases, that's me, or talking to other teachers, other friends, other parents, finding out what they're doing. Facebook groups. I follow loads of Facebook groups. The Imagination Tree is one of my favorites. But if you just type in the search bar like activity ideas for toddlers or preschool, lots of different pages will come up, and just follow them. And Sam on the Education Angels page is always posting really cool things as well. So yeah, and the bottom one there is all about the schemas. So the schemas are really interesting. You can find some really cool things about those. Here are some frequently asked questions, and then we can have some discussions if you like. Do I need to plan group and individual activities? So I guess this is more based at teachers, but the answer is you can plan both, or you can just plan individual activities and turn them into group activities. So you definitely need to be planning individual activities. But yeah, as I said, you can turn them into group ones, which then works on their social skills anyway. We're trying to move away now in early childhood from just planning group activities all the time that the teacher has chosen. It's really good for them to learn about the seasons and things like that, but we also need to be making sure that we're focusing on every child and what their stage of development is. So yeah, can do both though. How do I plan for babies? I get asked this question lots because yeah, I guess that babies do change their interests really quickly, and they are learning so much very fast, and they do have quite short attention spans. So for babies, watch them, notice what they like. Are they into wriggling and moving? And if that's the case, then make sure you're playing lots of songs and singing to them and giving them some instruments. As I said, just making shakers with the rice and rice in a bottle. And yeah, reading some books with them with rhyme, and if you've noticed that they're reaching for the ball all the time, then giving them soft balls, hard balls, different textured balls, fluffy balls, rolling them to them, bouncing them, showing them how to throw and catch. They love things like that. So yeah, it's just so similar but more basic. If the curriculum is child-led, why do I need to plan? And I completely understand this. Some people say, oh, I thought children, they just lead their own learning. Children should have lots of time to play and be free. Yes, they should, definitely. But what planning does is it extends their learning further. Children do need some element of support in everything that they do. You don't have to do the activity for them, but by planning it, being prepared, having some extra resources, changing the environment, taking them to different places, showing them different books, listening to different songs, all of those opportunities are going to help that interest and that stage of development. And having a balance is very important. Does anybody have any other questions?
Oh, are you going to discuss like some safety tips for children at home, especially when it comes to play?
No, but you can ask me about some safety tips if you like, Sam.
Yes, please. Because my little one just really loves exploring, and he likes putting things into his mouth. And uh, if maybe we can suggest like some fun and safe activities to try at home, that won't harm them, because I'm a little bit worried about my little one.
Yeah, well, I guess that just comes down to making sure that when you are engaging with them with some new resources, that you are with them, you're sat with them, and you're supervising them. Otherwise, if you're unable to supervise them, any dangerous object should be put away. And I guess it just comes down to baby proofing your house a little bit, because especially at the age of your little one, they are opening drawers, they're opening cupboards, they are getting into everything. So those locks that you can get, the sticky locks to lock cupboards and drawers, they are really handy to have. But I would say having like a safe area for them, whether that's in their bedroom, in a playpen. When I did home-based education, we used to always use my lounge, and I used to kind of like had my couches positioned in a way where they were kind of not trapped in the lounge area, but that was their specific play area, and everything in that area was safe for them. There was like a box for them with books. There was like a low shelf unit with puzzles inside, and all the child friendly toys for their stage of development. If you're concerned about what is child friendly or what resources are age appropriate, go online and find out, have a look at what resources are age appropriate, because you do need to be careful. You don't want to be putting out Lego when you've got a 2-year-old that's putting everything in their mouth, because majority of the time what they're doing is when they're putting things in their mouth is they're using their senses. How does it feel? How does it taste? And the majority of the time they'll just spit it back out because it doesn't taste nice. They've explored how it feels, but occasionally they can choke on things like that. So it does just come down to making sure your environment is safe at all times. Somebody has said that I work with 2 and 3-year-olds and they're having lots of tantrums. Woohoo! How can I as a teacher take control of this? We or the teachers at work together to control it to some extent through role modeling and talking. Yeah, remaining calm yourself is so important, because children, they will get heightened if if you're getting cross and you're getting angry while they're in the middle of a tantrum. And what's happening at the age of 2 and 3 is they are really struggling to manage their emotions. Maybe they're not talking as well as they want to just yet. They can't express how they're feeling. They can't rationalize, when they want a toy and someone else is taking it or someone else is playing with it. They haven't quite got those skills to say, hey, that's mine, I was playing with it, or it's my turn now, you've had it for a long time. So modeling those sorts of words, remaining calm, comforting them, getting down to their level, expressing that you understand how they feel, because a lot of the time all they want is for their feelings to be validated. So just saying to them, I know how you feel, I know you're upset, why don't we go and read a book together? You can have a turn with the train in a minute. And then giving them the words once they're calm. Next time you need to ask your friend, my turn now, or you need to wait. And it's just giving them those skills as much as you can, really. But try to remain calm, take a breath, tag team with your colleagues if you can, if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed. Yeah, I know that's a really tricky age, isn't it? The 2 and 3-year-old stage. But they are really finding their sense of self at that age. So yeah, it's tricky. Hope that helps. So just somebody else has commented. Thank you. All good. So as I mentioned earlier, this is the curriculum, Te Whariki. Unfortunately, the curriculum Te Whariki doesn't have a whole load of planning ideas. It's more about goals and objectives, I guess. There are some sections, if you find the book online, which the link is there. There are some teaching strategies, and it's actually separated into each stage of development for each strand. So if, for example, your toddler is into the contribution strand where they're learning to play alongside other children and developing their social skills, if you flick through the book to that contribution section, it will have infants, toddlers, and then young children. So, and there are some ideas of how you can support them. It's just there's not loads of ideas. That's why I always use Pinterest. But Te Whariki is really good for just looking at the goals and seeing where you want your child to be moving on to and what stage of development they're at. And yeah. So what to take away from today? The main things I guess I want you to take away from today is allowing time for free play, doing observations, and trying to find out what your child is interested in and their stage of development. Then reflecting, making sense of what they're learning. Planning, making notes of how you're going to support them and the resources you're going to need. Implementing, so setting up new ideas and activities and games and toys. My favorite place is the op shop. The amount of things I can buy in the op shop for $10 is just amazing. Puzzles, all sorts of fine motor things. But you can make so many activities yourself as well. Using old Pringle pots, or somebody used the lids of the baby wipe containers, and she stuck them to a piece of cardboard, and inside each one she put a different material for the babies to feel. So you can make so much stuff yourself as well. And then evaluating, looking back on what you've been doing, what your child has learned, and what you're going to do next. And that's all from me. So if anybody has some questions or wants to engage in some discussions, we've still got about 10 minutes left. The chat box is there, or you can turn your microphone on and you can ask some questions. maybe let us know what part of the webinar you found helpful. Anything you're a bit confused about, I can go back over. Yeah, anybody got anything? Sam, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, phew. I'm so glad I made it through the whole thing without my computer dying. Do you feel I've covered enough, or is there anything else you feel as a parent yourself that you would like to know a bit more about, or yeah.
I love the planning stage, and when you mentioned earlier that this is a cycle, the observing, the planning, evaluating. How often do you do it? Like, do you do it on a weekly or monthly basis?
So with Education Angels at the moment, we are doing it on a termly basis, so every 10 weeks or so, because we're really just trying to get our nannies and home-based educators into this routine of planning and implementing ideas. And because I suppose they're looking after lots of different children, it can be a bit overwhelming for them to be doing it too often. When I worked in the early childhood centre, we would do it every month. But yeah, as I said, it's just entirely up to you and your child's stage of development. So as I said, babies change their interests so quickly. One minute they might be really into dancing, and then the next minute they're really into crawling. And it's very common for children to be interested in one thing. So, for example, my mum said to me the other day, "Oh, your niece is still not walking yet, and she's 15 months and we're a bit concerned." And I said, "Okay, well, what is she doing?" Because in early childhood we really try and focus on what they can do. And she said, "Oh, she's talking so much, Leah." And I said, "Well, there you go. At the moment she's concentrating on her talking, and that is the skill she's working on. So singing to her, reading books to her, that is where she's at the moment. Once she's mastered some talking and she's happy with that, she will then move on to learning to walk. But at the moment, she's happy crawling. So just leave her." And my mum's like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that." But yeah, children, they can really only master one skill at a time. So as I said, if a child's really struggling with their social skills, but you've noticed that they're really into climbing, physical play, I would just focus on their social skills, because they can't play alongside others if they're hitting each other. So you really do just need to focus on that to begin with. But yeah, they are kind of working on one thing at a time, and with babies they are changing really quickly. So you could maybe do it on a weekly basis, on a fortnightly basis. But generally with older children, as I said earlier, like those 3.5, 4-year-olds, you can have a planning cycle that goes on for 10 weeks, sometimes more. And the more stuff you give them to do related to that interest, the more they just love it. So yeah, I had some children that were really into storytelling, and yeah, we were getting the instruments out. We had people come into the centre, come in to tell them different stories about different things. We were learning about myths and legends. We were reading the books about Maui. We were doing some acting and role play, and I would get different dress up resources, and we would make, Maui's necklaces, and it just went on for weeks and weeks and weeks. So yeah, it just depends on the child, but you'll soon know when their interest is changing, because they won't want to engage as much. So it's kind of a cue then to go, okay, what is he interested in now? Vicky said she found the throwing part helpful. Yeah, I had a little 2-year-old today at playgroup who, oh my goodness, he was just throwing everything around, and the nanny was just like, "Oh, what do I do?" Like, let's go outside, let's go and find some balls, let's get him throwing things out there where it's safe, and just explaining to him, we don't throw blocks, we don't throw Lego, we go outside, we throw balls, and just redirecting them to something that they can do that is still meeting that need, because that is his stage of development, that's what he's learning. But you just need to make sure that you're giving him a safe place to do it. And says, I found the planning cycle helpful. Yeah, it is. Even as a primary school teacher, it's a bit different because we're not following the child's interest, but we use the planning cycle because we don't necessarily do as much observation because they're not playing as freely. But as a primary teacher, we are planning, we are reflecting, we are evaluating, and then we kind of go on in that cycle. So yeah, it is very helpful.
We have a question from an anonymous attendee. He or she said, what are your thoughts on electronic toys versus conventional heuristic toys in regards to learning through play? Would you suggest minimizing electronic toy options?
Well, I feel there is a place for both. And Sam and I talked about this earlier, about TV. And there's definitely a time and a place for TV. Children learn so much from things that they see on TV, and it's just about making sure you know what they're watching and what they're doing. I find some electronic toys are great because they press the buttons and it gives them a sound, and noises, animal noises, things like that. So I find some electronic toys are really cool. But I think, as I said earlier, it's about having a balance. It's all about having a balance between free play and planned play, a balance between TV time and reading stories, a balance between electronic toys and open-ended toys that are heuristic. So I just think having a mixture of everything is good. I don't think too much TV time and iPad time and screen time is amazing for children because it does kind of stunt that creativity. With open-ended toys, they are being creative and innovative. They're thinking, they're reasoning, they've got that time to, really make those working theories in their heads. Whereas with electronic toys, they're kind of given the answer. But yeah, there's a time and a place for both for sure. I wouldn't feel bad for using them. Yeah, I don't really like it when people say that children shouldn't have electronic toys because there definitely is some learning happening from them. So yeah, good question. Thank you.
I agree with you, Leah. Here's a question from a parent to all the teachers and educators. When you say balance, uh, what do you say about screen time? What's your recommendation? How long do you let a child sit on the telly?
So I don't have my own children. I've been working with children for a long time. In the early childhood centres, we don't have screen time at all. But then there are loads of children for them to play with. The space is huge, so there's not really a need for it. In home-based education, I never used to allow TV unless it had been raining for about a week and I was about to go crazy. But then I would let them watch a bit of TV and we would just, watch some songs and children's nursery rhymes and things like that. We would watch yoga. But yeah, if it's your own child at home, when I looked after my friend's little girl for a few days, I would let her watch maybe 15 minutes in the morning, and then in the middle of the day around 2:30, where she's dropping her naps, I would let her watch a little bit of Cocomelon or whatever for another 15 minutes, just while she had some quiet time, just some resting time. And then maybe another 15 minutes in the evening if you want to get dinner on, and you just want to let them have some quiet time before having dinner and bath and bed. So yeah, I mean, depends what age they are really, but she's 3, and I'd say she had half an hour of TV time a day. But yeah, I mean, it just depends. If the weather's really bad and it's raining, and it's been going on like that for a while and you can't get out in the garden, then you may want to have more. But yeah, depends on their age. I don't really think they need much screen time at all, really, under the age of 2, because they're pretty happy to just play independently, aren't they, at that age? But yeah, I guess as they get older, a little bit more TV time is okay. As they get to 5, they might be able to watch a whole movie from beginning to end, and there's nothing wrong with that. If anything, it teaches them about concentration. So yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't think people should get too stressed out about it, but definitely need to have time for free play too. Being creative. My favorite thing is just paper and watercolor paints. When I looked after my friend's little girl last week, honestly, she must have sat at the table for about an hour painting rainbows and flowers and all sorts of cool creations. We cut the paper into different shapes, and she was painting around the shapes, and yeah, she had a great time. And I think the watercolor paints cost me about $4. So yeah, it was worth it. It was worth the $4 for sure. Okay, I think we've got about 3 minutes before the end. So if anybody's got a question or a comment, then now's the time. Otherwise, I will let you go off to your cups of tea or whatever time of day it is for you, whatever you're up to. Yeah, get back to your children. Get ready for bed. Thank you so much for coming and joining. I hope you've learned something. We do have Facebook pages, and we do have Instagram pages. So if you're not following, then please do. Sam's always posting really great activity ideas on there. So cool science things you post on there sometimes, don't you, Sam?
And some crafts too.
Yeah.
And some parenting memes,
Yeah.
which
I love
you all
those.
might relate.
They make me laugh. Yeah. So please follow our pages, and yeah, thank you for coming. Thanks for your help too, Sam.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
And yes, feel free to download the early childhood curriculum. It's free. Te Whariki. And actually, the Ministry of Education have quite a lot of really cool resources online. If you've got a child who has maybe got some learning difficulties or, social difficulties, there are lots of really speech and language. There's some really good documents online from the Ministry of Education in New Zealand. Speech and language, a really good one is Much More Than Words. There's some really great ideas on how you can help your child with their speech and language on there. So yeah, just have a little Google search and see what you can find. And if you don't have Pinterest on your phone, download it now. It's so good. I love it. Right. Thanks, Sam, and have a good evening.
Have a great night, everyone. Bye now.